Hello and welcome to the F1 Word and the Weekly Word. Yes, it is basically Sunday Live with a new name. Nothing is changing. It is just a new name. How are we all in the chat today? You look ready for a bit of a debate, a little bit of rumour going on today around Fernando Alonso. Also, some interesting stuff that really I wasn't going to talk about because I wasn't really overly interested till Jonty said something last night. But I'm going to come on to that in just a moment. I'm going to start off though by saying a very good evening to Jonty. Good evening, mate.
Oh, that was quick. It caught me by surprise.
You see.
Everyone.
Straight onto it. No messing about today. Are you well? Are you keeping well?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, good.
Looking forward to these touchy subjects.
Yes, definitely. I think the first one will be a divisive one. I've already seen the chats going a little bit crazy for that one. But we'll also say, as we always do now, good evening, Chaz.
Yes, hello everyone, and again, thank you for having me on, Sean.
No worries, mate. Thank you for wanting to be on. We've got a couple of tasty topics for you today, or hoping tasty, definitely hoping. People might get really bored and disappear and hate the topics, but we're going to start off with Fernando Alonso because there is actually a little bit of gossip circulating about him, which I think it's fair to say probably, Jonty, that it's not a big surprise because this is something that has really been circulating for a while. About IndyCar, especially since he did it last year. But talk, certainly coming from Martin Brundle and some things that he said post-Monaco, have got people talking about probably full-time Indy next year.
Yeah, there was that interview with Alonso that Brundle did that got very, well, what's the word? Candid. He was quite open about these subjects. And it did throw up the warning signs that he'll be gone.
Yeah, definitely did. I mean, Martin Brundle said, I've got the quote written here. I've changed my setup around, by the way, so if I'm a little bit lost today, I do apologise, but I'm still finding my way around it. He said he had a long sit-down interview with Fernando Alonso pre-race, and he gave him the impression that he likely wouldn't be on the F1 grid next year. And that hasn't been helped by his retirement from Monaco. And post-race, these are the comments that really got me interested. Post-race, he was massively critical of Monaco and Formula One, but heaped the praise on Indy. And I think that's what's got people going. But I think we do have to err on the side of caution a little bit because this could just be a little bit of a Mark Webber style slamming the glass down on the desk, really fed up that he's been retired or he's retired from a Grand Prix again, could have been racing in Indy and then thrown a bit of a wobbler. That could be what this is, to be honest, Chaz, couldn't it?
It could be, but I think mentally he's checked out of Formula One. I don't think there's any chance he's going to be at McLaren or in F1 next year. I think he's definitely going to either IndyCar or even for Toyota in the World Endurance Championship.
I've been saying for quite a while now that I think this is his last year in Formula One, and I do need to clarify something. I don't want Alonso to leave, and I certainly know you feel the same, Jonty. I don't know if you feel the same on that, Chaz. I certainly don't want him to leave Formula One.
No, I don't think anyone does because he is an exciting driver. He always drags more out of the car than what's there. You know, he gets an extra 2 or 3 tenths at least per lap than a car is probably capable of.
Yeah.
So no one wants to see him go, and he will race wheel to wheel with people and keep it fair so he's excited instead of silly mistakes like other people. So no one wants him to go, but is he being forced out by his own choices, maybe?
I wonder, I don't know how you two feel about this, but I wonder if he's at a point now where he's had this is the 4th year of, to put it quite bluntly, broken promises from McLaren. And I do wonder if maybe he's just hit a point where he almost has lost that trust and that faith in them.
I would say he has. There was so much promise by Honda, although lots more has come out about that since the change to Renault, and we were unfairly harsh on Honda before we had all the information, I think. But it's down to, I honestly think a lot of it's down to his choices. He chose to stay there. There will have been options through the last 3 years. Obviously, contracts have to be messed about with on buying people out, this, that, and the other. But he could have gone somewhere else. Other people would have snapped him up.
What about you, Chaz? Do you sort of get that feeling from him when you hear what he has to say?
I think after the first couple of years in 2015 and 2016, I don't think he was totally fed up with McLaren because even though 2015 was bad, they did make that progress in 2016 and finished 6th in the Constructors. What really put the final nail in the coffin really was what they did in 2017, because he expected McLaren to continue to progress, and they dropped back to where they were in 2015. So yeah, I think since the start of 2017, and if anyone's watched the that documentary on Amazon, was it the Grand Prix Driver, detailing their pre-season, you could see that once he got in that car for pre-season and drove it, he was done.
I have to say, if anybody hasn't seen that and they can get to see it, I highly recommend it, because it's a really good insight, and you learn quite a bit from that. I don't know if they intended for you to learn quite so much, but you did learn a fair bit. So yeah, I highly recommend that one. I think another quote for me that I guess really turned my head when I read it from Alonso. He said, the pace of Red Bull was disappointing. Disappointing for us. We use the same engine as them. They are our yardstick, and in an ideal world, we should be on par with them. That, Jonty, for me, is a definite change in rhetoric from him. He's been very, not full of plaudits for McLaren over the last few months, but he's not been anywhere near as negative. But since Monaco, he's definitely changed his approach.
Yeah, definitely, because the last 3 years and at the start of this year, he was bigging up the chassis, constantly going on about how good the McLaren chassis is, and that now they've got the Red Bull power, the Renault power, it will turn things around for them. So to come out and openly say that it's disappointing is a big step in the other direction, and that does ring the alarm bells.
A lot of people say, or say to me when I sort of bring this up in live streams and on other videos as well, that they shouldn't be, that there is no comparison to Red Bull. That's not what they're trying to do. And that's nonsense. And Fernando Alonso has confirmed that there. McLaren came into the season saying, Red Bull are our target. That is where we want to be. We want to be competing with them. And what is it, 1.2 seconds, Chaz, off the pace at the minute?
Yeah, it was, I think exactly in Monaco, it was probably 1.3, but they're nowhere near Red Bull. I mean, they, with Alonso in Spain, were almost lapped twice by the Mercedes of Hamilton, who everyone was saying going into the season that McLaren had a better chassis. Well, obviously that is not the case. Yes, in terms of, pace right now, you can't compare McLaren and Red Bull, but going into the season, Fernando Alonso, I think Zach Brown was saying it as well, that they have to compete with Red Bull because they have the same power unit. They are over a second off, and that is for what makes 2018 for McLaren a failure, because they are so far off Red Bull, and that was their target.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big point. And you look at Monaco, they can't put it down to engine power there. That's all about chassis.
It's a very good point, and it's an odd one. And I'm not going to get into McLaren bashing, if you like, because it's sort of about Alonso. But the point is made there that he must be looking at it and thinking, look, as we've already touched on, you've told me this for the last 3 years. I think 2014 you could accept, because at the end of the day, that's a new partnership. Did I say 2015? Sorry, you could accept because that's a new partnership. It's going to take time for that to grow, so you can understand that. 2016, yeah, maybe cut him some slack, but you said it as Chaz. 2017 was supposed to be the big year. He was promised all of that. They went through the whole winter talking about how they were going to be there. Fernando Alonso was confident. That was absolutely great. And everyone was saying, hey, hang on a minute. Maybe if Honda can turn this around, McLaren have got something here. And the fact they had to then, according to that documentary and other things as well, had to actually go with Fernando Alonso for a sit-down somewhere to try and convince him and beg him to stay for 2017, says a hell of a lot. And but it surprises me, looking at Alonso and listening to what he has to say, it surprises me he did stay, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, because he certainly seemed set to go. There must have been some very, very smooth talking going on.
It's like Racing says in Discord all the time, it's Zach Brown's a businessman, isn't he? So he's able to talk people into anything. So that's probably what's happened there. But I think the IndyCar thing has a fair bit of credibility to it, but I think he is more likely to go with the World Endurance Championship, because he's already doing that this year. He's got Le Mans coming up. there's no reason why he couldn't do, as far as I know, I might be wrong, I'm not up on the WEC calendar and the Indy calendar, but I don't see any reason why he can't do WEC and still go race the 500, as far as I'm aware. And that's part of his Triple Crown. So, yeah, I mean, do you think Indy's a good place for him, Jonty? And, you know, it's a lot more, is it more of a level playing field there? So it's going to be his talent that shows through?
It's a good possibility, because in the Indy last year, he really showed that he can do it. You know, he was voted Rookie of the Year. I don't know how much weight to put into that, but in the qualifying, he came in 6th, which was epic. On his first, literally his first sort of session, first race meeting in the car. He'd never done Indy before that, and was on for the win. He really was in with a chance of winning that until the engine went.
Yeah, which is just irony, isn't it, really? Evil.
Yeah, that was pure bad luck. But he's also got the skills around real tracks, which Indy still does have. A lot of people complain about Indy being just ovals, going around in circles. No, there's a lot of proper tracks in there, some of which are brilliant and very challenging. He could really dominate around there, which is exactly how Mansell took his title back in 93.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's not all over. I was part of that clique, if you like, who used to say that it was all ovals, and then I actually sat down and watched a lot more of it, and it isn't. There's some great tracks there, and it'd be a great way for him to really show what he's got. I mean, I think it's quite clear he's still got the talent. You know, I'm not going to sit and say Van Dorn is the greatest thing on the planet, but he's destroying Van Dorn this year. And, you know, part of that is the fact that maybe Van Dorn's got a little bit of an experience when it comes to Formula One, and Alonso's a lot more experience, but it's massively down to talent. That has to come down to him. I said that when I did my Van Dorn video. He's got to be worth 2 or 3 tenths of a second a lap. And as you said, Jonty, anybody would snap him up in Formula One. The problem is, where does he go? The only viable option for me would be Renault.
Yeah, Renault could be a shout, but he's had so much with them in the past. You know, is it like a third bite of the pie? And he would have to then be starting again, building a team around what he needs in a car, or what he prefers in a car, not needs. That doesn't sound right. So does he want to waste another year or two to get the car up to competitive level?
Yeah, it's just a good point. I mean, would you say McLaren are behind Renault now, Chaz, or is it just really ridiculously close between them two?
It's still close, but I think Renault have the better car. And I think to judge who has the better car, you have to look at Van Dorn's performance, because Alonso always outperforms the car he is driving. For example, the 2012 Ferrari was not the second fastest car. It was probably the 5th fastest and a second off the McLaren and Red Bull that year. This McLaren is probably the 6th fastest on the grid, I'd say, behind the Force India and Renault.
Yeah. I think
so. That's not really progress, is it? Especially from the end of last year, because they were about 6th fastest with the Honda at the end of last year.
I don't know if I put them behind Force India, but I think when Haas nail it on a weekend, they're behind them.
Yeah.
I think Force India are developing very, very well. We're going to come on to them in just a moment, but I think they're developing well this year and improving race on race. So they've got a good chance of getting ahead because, of course, they've got one of, if not the best engine on the grid. So that's going to help them massively. But yeah, I just disappointed in McLaren, and I think that's got to be where Alonso's frustrations are coming from. I think you've touched on it, John T. Monaco's all about the chassis, and that car should have been brilliant there, and it should have been. You could argue with the same power unit, if the chassis is as good as they've claimed it has been for the last 3 years, should have been 3rd and 4th on the grid.
Yeah, exactly. And if you take out the extra 2 or 3 tenths that Alonso can drag out of the car, at Monaco, that chassis was 6th, maybe 7th fastest.
Yeah. It's insane, really. And that's why I think his frustrations have come out. And what did he say after the race in Monaco? I mean, I have to say, he said Monaco was probably the most boring race in the history of F1. I disagree on that. I don't often disagree with what Alonso says because I think he's quite to the point on it. It's not the most disappointing or the most boring race in F1 history. We've had a hell of a lot worse. I'm not going to sit naming them all. But he said at least watching the Indy 500 was fun, especially because the people who watched this race, as in Monaco, were a bit numb. So he's really gone out on the attack on F1 and Monaco, whilst praising Indy. So I think there is a lot of credibility in that rumour. Somebody's just pointed out in the chat, which I've just missed your name, and I do apologise, saying that in WEC he's got to share the car, whereas in Indy he gets the car all to himself. And to be honest, that's very Alonso. He likes to be not criticising him, but he likes to be centre of attention, doesn't he? It's all about him at a team. So I think Indy is a very good possibility for him.
Yeah, it is. And you also have to think that in WEC, everything is shared, not just the car, all of the practice time, qualifying time, all of the rewards from it. It's a more of a racing challenge, but in Indy, there's a bit more glory.
There's talk as well, isn't there, that McLaren are going to go back to Indy. So perhaps there's a tie in there that would work out quite nicely for all parties, because he's a very marketable guy. So, putting a Zach Brown head on, that would be a big loss to McLaren. But this is the other thing, if he goes, let's say he retires at the end of the year, who's going to jump into that McLaren? Because everyone talks Lando Norris. We talk about Lando Norris a lot, according to some people. We probably do. But the way he's driving an F2, you can't not. But we've got so many drivers out there that could sit in that car. Maybe a Perez could get another chance at McLaren. You've got drivers that, maybe a Hulkenberg perhaps could jump in there. The problem is they need, really, in terms of their brand, their marketability, they need a world champion in that car.
Yeah, they do, which is part of the problem. Although with the talk of McLaren entering Indy full-time, then surely they would keep Alonso on as the driver for that.
Yeah.
So as the McLaren brand as a whole, they've still got a world champion in there. But it's really, the things he said about Indy this year seemed very much like he was just using it to get his sort of tantrum across, if you like.
Yeah.
Because there has been a lot of stuff from Indy fans this year saying that it was the worst Indy 500 there's ever been because it was pretty dull. Last year was awesome. It was all over the place. And a lot of the hype for last year was because of Alonso, but the race itself delivered. I have seen several videos from other channels on YouTube slating this year's Indy 500.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know how much truth there is into what he was saying about it.
You kind of feel like he's just doing it to give F1 a bit of a kick because it got a lot of criticism, didn't it, after Monaco? So sort of kick it while it's down almost.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the worst I've seen, as Silver Darling in the chat says. I've seen worse 500s than that, but it certainly wasn't up there. Same with Monaco. So it really was just a bit of a spit in the dummy moment.
So before we jump on to the next point then, couple of questions for you both. One each. Well, no, not one each. Two each. You're going to get both. Screw it. Starting with you, Chaz. Where will he go next season if he doesn't stay in Formula One? And who takes his seat? Or, no, not that. Who would you put in his seat?
He will go to WEC for 2019 and probably 2020 as well with Toyota and try and win Le Mans and obviously the title. And I would replace him with Lando Norris. And I know you guys were saying that McLaren need a world champion in there, and they do. But why would any of, Hamilton, Vettel, or even the others that haven't won a title, Ricciardo, Verstappen, why would they want to go to McLaren? It's a very unattractive place to go to right now. So the only driver lineup I see next year is Norris and Van Dorn.
Yeah, fair points. What about you, John T?
I think he will probably do Indy, but he will also do Le Mans as a standalone race, or vice versa. That he's going to have a crack at both because he is running out of time to get this triple crown that he's so desperate for. As for the McLarens, I'd love to see Norris in there, but they do need someone with more experience. They can't have two fresh drivers. Williams have other problems with the cars, but they certainly haven't got the drivers capable of telling them what they need to know to fix it. And that's evident. So McLaren really can't afford to have that holding them up as well.
It'll come as no surprise, but I agree with you on the Indy and the WEC thing. I think one way or the other, he'll race in one of the series, then either do the 500 as a standalone race or the Le Mans as a standalone race. In terms of the drivers, I tend to agree that I think it will be Norris. That I kind of look at it and think that is the way they go. But as I said earlier in the week in another video, if Ricciardo decides he wants to leave Red Bull, McLaren will try and get him. He won't go there. There's no reason for him to go there. It's a step down to what is effectively what he has now, just with a worse chassis. There's no way he'll go there, but McLaren will try to get him because that could be their best opportunity to get some experience in that team that isn't a risk, because I don't think Ricciardo is a risk for anybody. I think he's going to be consistent. So I think it will be Van Dorn and Norris, but don't be surprised if they get linked with Ricciardo a lot if he decides not to stay at Red Bull. So yes, and we're going to jump on to the next one. This one I'm going to give credit to Jonty for, because I didn't really think a lot about it, the Vijay Mallya thing. I covered it in the news roundup yesterday. But you made a great point, Jonty, and I'm going to let you make that point because it's only fair. So take it away, mate. It's all yours.
Well, yeah, I can imagine a lot of people saw the news that Vijay Mallya has stepped down as CEO, principal, whichever title it is. They all have different ones, of Force India, with his son taking over. So now Vijay Mallya has no direct influence on the team at all, which doesn't sound like much news, but I think it's going to be great for Force India. Everyone knows about all of the legal battles that Mallya's been involved in over the last couple of years because of the fraud involvements and lots of underhanded dealings away from F1, but he's tied to the team. That's going to put off sponsors. Now, I was just wondering what you two and the chat were thinking about this. Is this a good thing for Force India? Now they've got the negative side of the publicity gone. Will it attract some bigger money and really push them forward in the years to come?
I mean, he stays on as team principal, doesn't he? But he's not got any influence at board level, I think, is the point, I guess. But it's... I honestly didn't read anything into it, really. And then you said what you said yesterday, basically that to me, and I was like, that's a great point. If you're Rich Energy Drinks, who have been linked to them a lot over the last few months, if they see a guy who's got a legal struggle, they're not going to want to go and get into any kind of business directly with him, are they? That would be it's just not going to happen. Whereas now it opens up so many possibilities, and the fact he himself has said that if an offer comes in, they will consider it. They're not walking around with, I think he said, they're not walking around with a for sale sign, but if an offer comes in, it will be one that they discuss. I think certainly it just opens up a lot of possibilities for Force India. They are in a hell of a mess at the minute financially, and they don't really need this extra bad publicity around them to push sponsors away. They need every single penny they can get. I struggle with it because I hate the guy. I'm going to be quite honest about it. I absolutely hate the guy, and it's nothing to do with his legal problems. I just don't like him. I never have. But I think I agree, John. I see it as a positive for their future. I really do.
Yeah, because I mean, I've done a little bit of digging further into it, and you've got to think that the Securities and Exchange Board of India, which I think is kind of akin to the Monopolies Commission in Britain and the Customs and Excise and all the tax people, they're right at the top, very important from the government. He's been banned from accessing the securities market for 3 years and from holding any position as director or key managerial person of a listed company for 5 years because of all this involvement in fraud. Now, all sponsors have to think with the business. They have to think smart about how's it going to look for their company if they're getting involved with him. The racing itself is completely irrelevant.
Yeah,
it's all about how things look on the books, on paper, and just the rumor that they would be involved with Vijay Mallya would put their stock down. That's how these things work. Just rumors are enough to destroy a company. So with him gone, it really could bring in some big money for them.
It's a great opportunity, isn't it, when you think about sort of the situation they're in? And I can understand. I mean, if I had my money, and like you say there, it's a negative thing in terms of stock market and things, but if I had my money to put into a team, I wouldn't want to put it somewhere where there was possible... I mean, I don't know the full ramifications of what's going on in terms of the legal issues, but if they are there, it's massively off-putting. You're almost gambling, aren't you, with your money in a way? But I didn't realise it had got... I'm glad you've done the digging. I didn't realise it had got as bad as that for him. But I have to say, it's... without sounding too, I guess, a little bit salty in a way, that I don't get this from my parents, but it's a bit... You know, he hasn't got the influence at board level, but he has put his son into that position. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's a little bit of playing with the legalities of it. Bill Gates did the same thing, you know, when he was told, you can't possibly have this company all to yourself, you've got to give some away. So he gave 51% to his son, who was 8 months old at the time. Utterly ridiculous, can't even sign the contract. But, you know, that's just playing the legal terms. But it's just looking at it overall, I just see it really, really positive for the team. What do you think, Chaz?
In terms of getting new sponsors in, it will help. I don't think it'll have a massive effect, but in terms of this Rich Energy partnership or them taking over the team, I think it will help that possibly happening. But yeah, I don't think the sponsors will now come flooding in.
You don't think they will?
I don't think they will, but it will help a bit.
Oh yeah, I don't expect they'll rock up to Canada with a whole new livery and a whole new sponsor or anything crazy like that. But it just opens up the possibilities, as I keep saying, because the money isn't there for that team. And I know you're a big fan, John C. I do like Force India. A lot of you in chat have been saying it would be such a shame to lose them. Not just because they are a fun team and they're out there and they race hard and what they do with a small budget is great, but because of where they come from as well. You know, they were Jordan and there are always going to be a lot of love for that team from everybody, so it'd be really bad to lose them. But I think that's the point, John T, as well. If you look at what they've done over the last 2 years with very limited budget, yes, of course, Mercedes engine, but the chassis has been good as well, what could they do with a decent backing?
Well, exactly. They could throw so much more money at the development. They could have a lot more time using the wind tunnels, using all the CFD, getting more people involved. But you have to think, with all the CFD that they do on the computers, the amount of data they get out of that is limited purely to how many people they can employ to do it. So if they can afford to employ more people, they're going to get better results. There's all those little things. But I also think, with you saying it would be a shame for the team to go, you know, no one wants to lose them. But there is that possibility in the future now that maybe there would be an investor prepared to buy the team because they haven't got a great big legal battle hanging over his head. It's now completely separate, gone. It's his personal thing. It has nothing to do with the team.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's about, you know, the name Force India, they talk about changing that, and it's remembering that just because a name changes doesn't mean the team changes. And that sounds ridiculous and such an obvious thing to say, but, you know, they were Jordan. There are still personnel there that were at Jordan. If they get bought out at the end of the year, there'll still be personnel there, if not all the personnel there from Force India. It's the same. They kind of come along together. It's like the Enstone outfit are a great example at Renault. They've been through so many name changes over the last decade. I don't know what they're called this week, but it's fundamentally the same team, isn't it, Chaz?
Yeah, they've been around for a long time. They've been through the highs, the lows, you know, winning races and being at the back racing with Minardi. They're a tough bunch, and in the last few years, I think they've been one of the best performing teams in Formula One in terms of their budget compared to other teams and how they've done.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, they do well. They're not a Mercedes B team, as some might say. There are definitely links there, aren't there? But I think they do brilliantly with the budgets they've got, and they do well with the drivers, and I'm excited for them. You know, as I said, I don't like Vijay Mallya. The team probably love him to bits for so many reasons. He's probably a brilliant person, but I just think his attitude stinks a little bit, if I'm being honest. But I think they've got a bright future, John T, and I think that's the important thing to take away from all this.
Yeah, it really is. It's just good news for the team, and it's a negative that can be just lost to the history pages, and hopefully nothing like that will ever mar a team again.
Fingers crossed. I mean, we've got 2021 coming up in terms of money, and they're on about cost capping, which I don't think will happen, but they're still talking about it. That's going to help them out. So get some sponsors in. I don't see them winning world titles anytime soon, but, you know, you probably could argue that Braun were never going to win a world championship when they were just founded just before the season started. So 2021, get everything right. You never know, do you? That's the thing with Formula One.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I don't think there's much more to say. I was scrolling through my notes to make sure that I haven't missed anything. But yeah, I mean, this Rich Energy thing was going on in the preseason. People talk about a name change for Australia. It never happened. So do you think the India name damages their branding at all? Or damage the possibilities?
Not until they had all the political issues with the race itself. That might be seen as a little bit of a negative, but I think it brings a lot more in than it takes away. You know, it generates a fan base in that country. It brings a lot more positive media to it than negative, I think.
Yeah, Albert has just said in the chat, there is a rumour that they may become Brabham or Rich Energy next year. I'd take Brabham back. I know it would only be a name, but that'll do.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And get the green back.
Mav says, why would the Indian name damage the team? Not damage the team, just sort of restrict them to possible sponsors who maybe don't want ties to India or maybe have ties to other countries that can't, if you know what I'm trying to say. It doesn't damage the team. That is their name. That is what they are. But I have to say that Indian Grand Prix, though, is a race I definitely miss. I loved that track. Loved it.
Yeah, it was brilliant. What was it? Was it turn 8?
Yes.
The big long one. Big long bank turn.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. I remember that, yeah.
That was a racetrack. Let's not get into racetracks, though. I'm sure that'll come up in Q&A at some point. One other thing to talk about very, very briefly before I jump on to Q&A. Also, for those who missed the channel update on Friday, I'll give you some bullet points from that as well, so you can ask me any questions, because there's a few things changing. We're evolving. I like evolving. Evolving sounds better than changing. Toto Wolff has said that he believes that F1's new management will find it increasingly difficult to maintain the levels of income that the sport has thus far received from race hosting fees. Yes, I'm reading that straight from the article. Miami are coming in. They're not going to be paying a fee. Monaco, of course, don't pay a fee. Do they call them risk-free or something like that? Yeah. Yes, risk-sharing model or something like that. So there is talk of Hockenheim, I think Baku are talking about it as well, Silverstone possibly about going with these risk-sharing models, but Toto Wolff is saying that F1's not going to get the money that it got under Bernie, basically, John T, which, is that praise for Bernie, or is that a negative?
I see it the other way, to be quite honest. I think they will do better out of this because of it involving the fans. As they say, shared risk or whatever, as opposed to a fee, they take a percentage of the gate and the hospitality. That's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. Because
it will get rid of a bit of the negative press. More people will want to go. The more people that go, the more money spent, the more everyone gets. I don't see how it could possibly be a bad thing.
No, because Bernie very much bled circuits dry, didn't he? I mean, look at Silverstone's situation. I can't remember what it was. I did get the numbers out the other week, but I think, is it 5% every year on top of what they're already paying? I think it increases by something like that, and it's astronomical to host an event when you've got places like Monaco, Miami that are not going to be paying a penny to host it. And I agree with you. I think it's a better way to do it, the way that they're looking at. But I'm going to say something that will probably see people throwing British bias at me, but I don't think the British Grand Prix should be paying any hosting fee anyway. Monaco don't pay one because of what they bring to the sport, which is absolutely fine, and because of the history. Well, Silverstone bring I think it's more than 300,000 people a weekend to Silverstone to go watching the racing, buying the tickets from F1, and of course then buying all the F1 shops at £8 a burger or whatever. So, you know, I don't see why they should have to pay a hosting fee.
Yeah, especially when it was the first race.
Exactly. What more history do you want?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to say. If one track's going to get it for historical reasons, then surely the first ever race should get it. Monza should get it.
Yeah. I mean, Silverstone hasn't been an ever-present, has it? The British Grand Prix has, but Silverstone obviously was, you know, been at other races as well. But it's, like I say, over 340,000 people last year through the gates. And if you actually compare that to the official Monaco figures, Monaco only bringing about 70,000. That's a big gulf.
Yeah, it's not a lot. And you have to think, as soon as it gets out and people and fans and Liberty and F1 all realise that this is working, they're getting a lot more money out of it because there's more people going. Like you say, 300,000 people at Silverstone, all paying those tickets. It's a much better option than just a flat fee, and that's all they get. It opens up the chance for them to make it a bigger event. Make it like Wednesday to Wednesday and have loads of other stuff involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I'm going to Silverstone in July, and they've changed the scheduling around for that one in that there's now stuff happening on a Thursday as well, so they're extending the weekend. So I have to say, I watched the Sky Sports coverage of Monaco, and I think it was Spain as well. They've got these new fan zones, and Liberty are doing some great stuff to take this sport back to the fans. So it's hugely important that these circuits are not just the British Grand Prix. There are other tracks that bring in equal-sized attendance, if you like, as Silverstone do. It's just so important that the fans that are turning up and paying what is basically for a full weekend, I think 400 quid each for all, give and take a few quid, that they've got to make sure that these circuits can host them, because 400 quid a person, I'm not doing the maths, but over 340,000 people is a hell of a lot of money. Why do you need a hosting fee?
Yeah, exactly. And if they do little things like spread the sessions out, I mean, you get at most of the weekends, certainly around the European tracks, you get the GP3, you get Formula 2, you get the Porsche Super Cup, but they're still all Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's like, spread them out a bit more. Have some of the lower series doing their practices straight away on the Wednesday, and spread it out more on the Thursday. So there's 5 days of action instead of 3. So people will be more inclined to go for the whole thing, which again will bring in more money, more attractive options to the fans.
I'd kind of like to see a historic World Championship run alongside the normal one each race weekend, just on a Wednesday or something like that. Have a random grid and everyone races for an hour. I think that'd be brilliant. But yeah, there's a lot that goes on at Silverstone. But I've just realised me and Jonty have sat chatting like we're not even on a live stream. Hi, Chas. Are you all right there, mate?
No, I'm enjoying it. Go ahead.
Is there anything you want to add on that? It's an interesting one. I was just saying about Liberty taking it back to the fans, and if they can sort out the hosting fees and make it cheaper for the circuits to actually have the Grand Prix there, it's going to be even better, because more fans can maybe afford to turn up, because ticket prices might come down a little bit.
I think definitely at the classic racetracks they should lower the fees. I think more the modern circuits maybe lower the fees, but not as much for, Silverstone, Monza, Hockenheim, Spa, all of that. Because these classic racetracks have been around so long, they do deserve some kind of compensation, I guess.
Yeah, just a bit of loyalty, almost like a loyalty repayment in many ways.
Yeah, like they do with the teams.
Yeah, I mean, Hockenheim are trying to get one of these deals. I have to say, again, going back onto circuits for a change on a live stream, I would much rather that not the Hungaroring at all. I'm lying to you. The Nürburgring went for that one rather than Hockenheim, but that's just a personal opinion. I don't know what you two think on that. The German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring is always more exciting than Hockenheim for me.
Yeah, I prefer it the Nürburgring because it's just such a fast track. It has so many great corners, and Hockenheim isn't a bad track. It's only really viewed as a bad track because of what it was before, but it's not as good as the Nürburgring. The Nürburgring is so good, and especially in wet conditions, which happens a lot at that track, it's just such a great track.
Yeah, and another thing that they need to move away from is this so much focus on grandstands.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, is a massive issue. It's a while since I've been to a race, but I can remember going to Donington to watch British touring cars, and obviously you had the grandstands in key points of the track, but you also had freedom to walk around the length of the track. You could get everywhere, and so you could go and watch wherever you wanted.
Yeah.
Now, it worked brilliantly at a track like Donington because you've got the big dip at the old hairpin crane of curves. If you go to Redgate or McLean's, you can see half of the track. It's great for spectators. And there are plenty of tracks in F1 where that would be a benefit. But they seem to sort of herd everyone into certain areas and make them pay a premium just so they can sit in a seat instead of sitting on a grass hill. But they need to allow that a bit more. Give it a much lower ticket price than you get in a grandstand, because you're having to walk around everywhere. You're always going to be reaching for an umbrella. But it would just add more attraction to the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew has just said in chat something which I love this comment. I have never heard of such a backwards system for event hosting. The promoter should be paying the venue for hiring, not the other way around. I think that sums it up quite nicely, doesn't it, John T?
Yeah, pretty much.
Absolutely spot on. I hope they can keep Silverstone. I think they will. Just very briefly on it, I think this is all the usual. Every 8 or 9 years, Silverstone have a bit of a hissy fit, if you like, don't they, over money and say, we can't afford to host it, we're off, and then they always seem to thrash out a deal. But I think they'll be staying at Silverstone because I don't think there really is anywhere else in the UK. I don't see a street track working, certainly not in London. And maybe Birmingham keeps getting mentioned, but I think that would be a little bit insane. I know you'd be happy with that, Jonty, because that's heading towards your neck of the woods. So, but yeah,
very much so. I went to the F3000 race there in 1987, and that was amazing.
I can imagine. But yeah, it'll get sorted. It'll get sorted, I'm sure. But we will move into Q&A now. We're going to stay on this screen because I forgot to set the other one up. So because it's just been that kind of weekend, because everything has been prepping for the evolution, if you like, of the channel. So I'm going to go this very quickly. I did a half-hour live stream, which was supposed to be 10 minutes. That does not bode well for what I've got coming up next week, which is a bit of a concern. I'm not going to lie. I do want to start off, though, as I did with that stream, just to say thank you to everybody for your messages of support and condolences over the last week. I'm not going to go into it, but I had a very difficult week with family. And to come back home on Thursday and have so many nice messages, it genuinely meant a hell of a lot. So massive thanks for that. I can't express that any more than just saying thank you. So really do appreciate that. The schedule I showed you on Friday is wrong. Completely wrong. I put the wrong one up. I was so prepared for that. So that is going to be updated, and I will get that on social media as soon as possible, Wednesday at the latest. So, but it's pretty much fundamentally the same. The big news to take from the Friday... big news. How arrogant was that line? But the news to take away from it on Friday is that the pre-race show on a Sunday, a race Sunday, will be going ahead as pretty much we did last time out, because it was... I really enjoyed it, Jonty, and I know you did, and the feedback we got was really positive for it, to be honest. So,
yeah, it was a brilliant feel to it. Everyone was just excited and hyped up for the race, and no one knew what was going to happen. So there was no sort of disagreement or anything like that in the chat. But not disagreement, but varying opinions about things that have happened in the race. It was all, what's going to happen? It was just a brilliant feeling.
Yeah, and half of the stream was watching the TV looking for raindrops, wasn't it? I seem to remember, but it was good fun. Really enjoyed it. So we're going to be doing that every Sunday. That's an hour before the Grand Prix, and then obviously the race debrief, an hour to an hour and a half afterwards. This weekend, I will try and get live as quickly as possible after the race, because it's a late one for us in the UK, which I know those of you over in America and whatnot are probably laughing at us now, going, ha. We have to do that every race, so shut up your moaning. But yeah, it'll be a late one this weekend. The other big thing is starting tomorrow, yes, we have a new thing called F1 Daily. Yes, I've committed to it now, so it's a little bit too late to back out of it, but every day I will be live at 8 p.m. for around about 15 minutes to go over the day's news, gossip, rumour, throw lots of opinion on it, and get your guys' opinions as well. So that is going to be a trial run for the next few weeks and see how it goes on. 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday, so it's not really daily, I guess. It's a very good point, but obviously we stream anyway on a Sunday. So Monday to Saturday, 8 p.m, except for Grand Prix weekends. It will move around a little bit, obviously with Canada being qualifying things at 8 p.m, so it will come forward a little bit. So that is Monday, tomorrow, 8 p.m. through to Saturday. See how it goes, get your feedback, and we will go from there. But we will start taking some of your questions. Thank you, John T. Just sent me a message saying I forgot about my donation shout-outs, which I will do. Or I won't do, because Stream Labels isn't working. Just bear with me on that one. I will try and sort that one out. But to take a couple of your questions from chat. If you've got anything to ask as well about the changes, do feel free to put them forward. Only 15 minutes. Yeah, it's only be 15 minutes because we do these on a Sunday, but I am open to extending a Wednesday one if need be, but that's not something I'm doing immediately, so it'll just be a brief rundown, get some opinion. Won't talk too quickly. I know I like to talk quite quickly anyway, but yeah. Monster Cosworth. Yeah. Have you managed to fix the problem with the Facebook issue? No, but I set up a second Facebook account yesterday and everything worked absolutely fine from it. So basically, I'm currently asking everyone to, friends and family, to follow me on that one. So for those who don't know, who follow me over there, I've been having some issues with the lagging on Facebook. I don't know if anybody else has it. Do either of you guys use Facebook much and have a lot of lag? Because I have some serious issues with it.
No, I don't seem to have any issues.
No, I'm not having any issues.
Just me then. But yeah, it is been sorted. So yeah, just waiting for this to open to get those donations through. Which track would you choose for the German Grand Prix? Hockenheim or and Nürburgring excluded? Old Nürburgring.
Yeah.
Just
I'm actually struggling for another German track that would suit F1.
Oh, what's that track they did? Is it Euro F3? It's got like that hairpin. It's like a street track, I think. I can't remember what it's called though. I think it's in Germany. I think they do like Euro F3 there. I can't remember what it's called though. But it's got like a hairpin, very wide hairpin. And then it's almost got a pit straight, similar to Long Beach.
Yeah, the Norris Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only one that I would go with, excluding those tracks.
I found the donations. It's working now. Thank you to Greg Dunbar for your contribution. Says, love the live streams and please buy some real cornflakes. Yeah. Maybe one day. I can dream. I'm going to say this wrong. Idodk. I'm just going to say EIDIODK. Says, you cannot seriously say McLaren is 6th, 8th maybe. Thank you for your contribution. I'll leave that to chat to sort out. And Dirty Trucker has also made a contribution. Thank you very much for that. You can do so. All the links are in the description down below. So yes, feel free. No pressure. You can if you want, but it's all good. Yeah, I'd love to see the old Nordschleife back, but that just never going to happen, is it? In Formula One, never.
No, that's never coming back. Certainly not for such a high-end series.
Will Robert Kubica be in a race seat this season, and in which particular team? Asks Cloudy Balloons. That is a great name, but I'd probably see a doctor if that's, yeah. I can't see him in a race seat. I can't. I know everyone's going to say Williams, but I just can't see it.
No, as much as I'd love to see him in a race seat, it just won't happen.
No, I don't think he will. I know he's been rumoured with Toro Rosso, but I just do not see why Helmut Marko would put him in that car. I don't see it.
I found the links to Toro Rosso quite an interesting one, but I tend to agree. I think that's just everyone's going to get linked to that seat, aren't they? As long as Hartley's not performing. But actually, I was looking at the head-to-heads because I'm thinking about doing a little bit of a stat video this week, looking at some of the head-to-heads. In terms of racing qualifying, Hartley's not been that bad versus his teammate, their level. It's only on the points that there's a big gulf, so maybe Toro Rosso were looking at that. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think that's... Maybe if it happens, it'll be Williams, but I don't even think that's going to happen. Yordi, final race. What about Baku? I still think the final race scene should be at Brazil.
Yeah.
Or Japan, Suzuka.
I'd do Suzuka and Brazil the last two races. I think that's perfect, especially if we have the World Championship going down right to the last race. I think those two races, maybe not back to back, but as the last two, that'd be absolutely bang on.
Yeah, either of them, because they're both kind of an even blend of chassis and power.
Yeah. Gus says, how will Renault do in Canada? It's all this update. It's all going to be about this engine upgrade. Lot of stuff going around at the moment about them possibly not giving it to Red Bull. It depends on how you read the article as to how you see that. Some think it's because Red Bull won't want it because they won't want penalties, and others are saying that Renault are withholding it. So it's an intriguing one. I think they'll go well because they will have the update. It is supposed to be quicker. Whether or not it will be, I don't know. And none of us will know until Sunday. But I think they'll do okay if the power is there. But the problem for them is if they've got the power and Red Bull get the engine, then Red Bull pull away even further, or the gap stays the same, doesn't it? So I don't know what you think, Chaz.
I think Renault, in terms of performance, I think they could sneak a car into the top 10 in qualifying. I think they'll be doing a lot better in the race because I think in terms of managing the tyres, they'll be a lot better at that than, say, Haas, who I think in terms of pace should be ahead of Renault. So I think they could score, 4 points, 2 points, say an 8th or 9th place finish, but it's not going to be, 6th or 7th.
Go on, John C.
No, I was going to say, the one point that people will have to be careful on with how they do in Canada is that Red Bull gets so much downforce out of the floor and the overall chassis of the car. They are able to trim so much wing out that it always makes it a bit skewed when you're getting on the top speed times. So it's going to make the results a bit tricky to analyse.
Yeah. Cravone Gaming, sorry if I said that wrong, says, really easy question. How would you fix Williams? I think scrap it and start again might be a fairly good idea. Find somebody that can build a chassis. I thought Paddy Lowe was the answer. We keep saying this, don't we? But it's the chassis. It's not an engine issue. We know that. They've got the best engine on the grid, potentially. So, I don't know. I just think they desperately need some experience in that team. I really do. I know Sirotkin's good with feedback, and Stroll's got a year under his belt, but they need some experience.
The first step, Claire Williams out.
Yeah.
That'll be a popular opinion.
That would fix everything. Honestly, I really believe it would. It would take time.
Yeah, definitely.
She is such a poor team principal. She's probably the worst on the grid. She's that poor.
I wonder what Sir Frank thinks. I'd be intrigued by that. I'd love to hear that. He's not saying negative, is he, really, about her, but very intriguing. Cloudy Blooms has got another one for us. Says, excluding Grosjean, who has underperformed the most? I would say probably Hartley. But like I say, he's kind of matching his teammate and everywhere else. I think Van Dorn has got to get a shout in there as well.
You know what? This might be controversial, but I'm going to go Max Verstappen. Except Grosjean and Sirotkin, of course.
Of course, Sirotkin, yeah. He has got a terrible car, though, to be fair.
If Verstappen had not made certain mistakes, he would be fully in the title fight. He would be within reach of Hamilton. But, yeah, he's just, when he's got the chance, he's not took it.
That's a good point.
Is it underperforming, or is it too many mistakes? Or I was thinking just sort of on pace, because when he's on it, he's quick and he's absolutely there. But if you throw mistakes in, he's got to be in there as well.
But in terms of pace, yeah, he's on it, but he's making so many mistakes, it's becoming a part of his performance. Do you know what I mean? Because he's making them so much.
I don't know. Christian Horner said something ridiculous this week about how he's having to do his learning in the public eye. And, I don't understand why that's an issue, because that's entirely Red Bull's fault. They were the ones that promoted him so quickly to Formula One. So, of course, he's doing his learning in the public eye, not to mention the fact he's a racing driver. What do they want him to do? Play F1 2017 all day? Of course he's doing his learning in the public eye. I don't know. I wouldn't drop him, and I think he needs the time. I know he's had 4 years, but I do think, still got a lot to learn. I'm sounding like Christian Horner. He's young. He's still got a lot to learn. But what I would do if I were Red Bull is I would pin Ricciardo down, hand him a blank checkbook and say, what do you want? Because they need that consistency until Max can start to deliver that, if Max starts to deliver that.
Yeah, they can't keep pinning their hopes on someone who is making so many mistakes. they need someone they can rely on.
Great point in chat there. Leclerc is doing his learning in the public eye. Look how well he's doing. There you go.
Yeah. And to some extent, Gasly.
Yeah. I think he's done very well this year, Gasly, I have to say. Ben McCarthy, great question. Who was better, Keke or Nico Rosberg?
Keke.
Keke.
Nico, no, Keke.
Don't you have to think about that.
Will Perez move to Renault next year if Sainz goes to Red Bull? I think he's got a shot. But as we keep saying, it's Ricciardo and Hamilton that have got the key to this driver market, haven't they?
And Raikkonen.
And Raikkonen, of course, yeah.
Yeah, any one of those three decides to go, and then it's all a mad game of musical chairs.
The Saint for the win. What if Force India would be sold to Chevrolet? That's an interesting one. Maybe somebody coming in and a manufacturer perhaps coming in and buying them. Maybe for thinking sort of 2021 onwards, it's a possibility.
Yeah, and that's certainly a team that would have the influence to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd prefer to see somebody come in and build a team from scratch so we get more cars on the grid, but if it meant saving the team, absolutely. Genuinely, Max is destined to be the next torpedo. Yeah, there's a lot of hate out there for Max Verstappen at the minute, isn't there? And, you know, I get it. I'm not blind to it. I can see exactly what he's like and what's been happening, but I'm not jumping on that bandwagon, so... Force India goes to Lamborghini. How would you rate Vettel's career since his 4th World Drivers' Championship? Underwhelming.
Yeah, I think 2014 and 2016 was definitely. He should have been a lot better. I think 2015 he did very well. That's probably his best year since 2013 in terms of the way he drove. He did well, obviously, in 2017, but made the mistakes. And this year, I think he's drove well, but I don't think it's... Vettel is not at his absolute best. That's not the feeling I get.
Yeah, he's... Despite being so positive and happy and forward, there's still just a little bit of something lacking from his driving this year. I can't figure out what it is. But once he nails that, it's going to be his title.
Yeah. Like I said, underwhelming, but I completely agree with you, Chaz. 15 was a great... That win at Malaysia, wasn't it? Where he was just so emotional on the podium. You could see how much it meant to him. That was such a great race and such a great drive as well. And that was, of course, when Mercedes were utterly dominant as well. So to pull that off on a power track was a big one. I know it was all tyre management and whatnot, but it was such a good drive. And I think if you take his errors out of last year, and we all know what we're talking about, I think it would have been classed as one of his better years since 2014 or one of his best years. But like you say, because of those mistakes, you've got to take, if you like, points off him for it, if that makes sense. So somebody's just asked us who the worst driver on the grid is. Trying to find the name. Mikkel wants to know who the worst driver on the grid is right now. In terms of points, it's Sirotkin, but I don't think he is the absolute worst on the grid at all.
For me, the worst is Lance Stroll.
Yeah, it's harsh. I know we're always bashing on at him, but he's doing nothing to change our minds. That's the big thing.
The thing with him is he only has one quality, really, and that's getting a good start. He doesn't do anything after that. He's not quick in qualifying, and I think we said he has to improve his qualifying pace. He clearly hasn't, because if he did, then he wouldn't have been out-qualified 4-2 by Sergei Sirotkin. So you'd have to say, as well in terms of his skill level, he is the worst.
And that's coming from Chaz, who is a big Lance Stroll fan. Like you say, John T, I feel like we do give him a lot of crap, but he kind of deserves it. His attitude doesn't help in front of the cameras either, but I think out of everybody, I don't want to say it, but it's Lance Stroll. I did see a question and I'm going to miss it. I know I am. Stroll attitude is unprofessional. That's what I was saying, Jason Rogers. Absolutely. Hartley is the worst. I think he's the worst. He's not anywhere near the best. A lot of people, quite a few people saying Grosjean.
No, because at least when Grosjean, gets the best out of himself, he is really good. He's probably one of the best midfield drivers when he performs at his best. When Stroll performs at his best, he's still 16th, 17th. You see what I mean? So you can't say that because Grosjean has the talent there. I don't think Stroll does.
Ben McCarthy says, what's your least favourite corner in F1? Mine, and it might be a bit of a controversial one because there's actually not really anything too wrong with the corner. It's just because I remember the original, and it should never have been changed, is the new bus stop at Belgium, at Spa. I hate that corner.
Yeah, I would agree with the old bus stop. It was brilliant because it was so silly because it actually was a bus stop.
Yeah. It was a great overtaking place as well. I know the new one does allow it, but that was so much better.
I'd have to say the last chicane in Spain, instead of that fast right-hand final corner.
Yeah, that's up there.
If, with these cars especially, which are so fast, could you imagine what qualifying or even the race would have been like with those, the fast right-hander and then the right-hander that's there now, but it would have been a lot faster. It would have been a lot more exciting, but now we have a very slow chicane.
Can I just say every single corner that's exactly 90 degrees?
Oh, yeah. I hate 90-degree corners. They can go to hell.
I thought you were going to say every single corner at Abu Dhabi. I don't know why. I had a vision of you coming in with that one.
Every single corner at Russia.
No, I like turn 3 at Russia.
Oh, except that.
So a few saying all of Russia. You're not on your own, mate. All of Abu Dhabi. Why not Monaco? The whole track is the worst. Just looking for one more question before we end it. See if we can get a really... Well, they've all been good questions again. See if it's something we haven't answered before. I will take that one. Go on then. From Zach Mullen says, looking at the last couple of races, do you think Kimi is returning to the Kimi we know from the last few seasons? I have been really impressed with him last season, at the start of this season, but I tend to agree that you look back at the last couple of races, he's definitely slipping back. Now, whether that's because of things within the team, I don't know. Whether it's just certain tracks aren't for him or the luck isn't going his way, but he's certainly not where he was first 2 or 3 races.
No, he's not. And it's since he blew pole position in Baku. Ever since then, and even though he finished second, he didn't really drive that well or drive to deserve second place. Since he's been like the 2017 Kimi Räikkönen, just not really doing anything.
No, I think he is back to how we saw him, certainly on his comeback in the Renault, when Lotus as it was, when he was just suddenly quick. He's been that at the start of this year. Yeah, he has lost a bit since Baku and through Spain, and Monaco, but they're not really tracks that suit him, apart from, let's just not forget that lap at Monaco he did last year, which was just insane. But no, I think Canada, he'll be back to what we like.
I hope so. I really hope so, because all the talks on his future at the moment, he's saying he wants to stay, by the way, for anybody who's wondering. But I just worry that Ferrari are going to make a decision soon, and he's not at his absolute best at the moment that we've seen. But we shall see. I mean, I tend to agree. I think he's been very good this season and deserves another year. And I don't think that'll hurt Ferrari, Leclerc, Vettel, or anybody involved. So we don't want to lose Kimi. If nothing else, he gives us some entertainment. So it's definitely, I want to keep him there. But if you have made a donation tonight, by the way, and I've not shouted it out, I can only apologise. Stream Labels is not working for some reason, and the YouTube Super Chat and sponsorships thing isn't updating. I've only got the 3 on there, but I think Eggy made a donation. So thank you very much, mate. And if anybody else didn't have missed you, I do apologise. If I can get it working, I'll give you a shout on Twitter or something like that, or mention you in, I've got F1 Daily tomorrow, so I'll do it then. But I do appreciate all your contributions, but we are going to leave it there because we are overrunning just for a change. We never usually overrun, honest. But I will be back tomorrow for F1 Daily. Chaz and Jonty, I will talk to them about whether they're going to be with me next Sunday. I assume, Jonty, you're doing the pre-race and the post-race because we've kind of started that Sean versus Jonty thing now, so I sort of need you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm losing, so yeah, I'm probably going to lose even more miserably this weekend. And hopefully Chaz will have you on again as well very, very soon. So thank you very much for joining me for this one, guys, and helping me out.
Thanks for having me on, as usual.
No worries, mate.
Thank you, and see you, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
talk to you soon. Bye. Yep, I will be back tomorrow with another video, and again, of course, at 8 p.m. for F1 Daily, which is going to be live every single day except for Sunday. So it's F1 6 Daily, or something like that. Whatever. It's F1 Daily. Obviously, content will keep coming thick and fast. The race preview is up on Tuesday. There'll be more content through the week, news on Friday, and of course, lots of live streaming over next weekend for the Canadian Grand Prix. I will post some times up on Twitter because obviously it's a bit of an awkward weekend for us in Europe, timing-wise, so everything's a little bit later. Not complaining because I quite like the later races, but it just changes our scheduling a little bit. But if you are on Twitter, do give me a follow. All links to social media are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.